Hello, everybody, and welcome to the International Youth Science Journal podcast. I'm Gauri.
And I'm Dalia.
And we're your hosts for our very first episode.
So we're really excited today to conduct an interview with our very first guest, who is AJ Caesar. He was previously the executive director at IYSJ, and we're really excited to have him on today. So if AJ, you just want to give maybe a brief introduction about yourself, who you are, kind of your journey, anything like that.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate it, and I was really excited to, see that you had started this. I mean, I handed off the journal at the end of the school year last year as I transitioned from being a high school senior to a college student. And I really didn't know what direction it was going to get taken in, but I've, checked up on the articles every few months, and it seems like, it's been really productive this year. And so when Gauri reached out to me with the invitation for this podcast, I was really excited to hop on. But anyways, so just a brief, summary of myself. I'm a current freshman in college studying engineering. I'm a little undecided at the moment, but I've always been interested in sustainable energy and just sustainability as a whole. So I would likely hope to pursue something within that area. I got involved with the journal during high school. I was looking for a place to, talk about sustainability and some of the things that I had been learning about within the area. And I forget, exactly how I came across the journal, but I did. And I reached out to, some people on the page, and I ultimately wound up getting involved, and it was able to, grow a lot, particularly in the last 2 years of when I was in high school. So that was a really cool evolution to see. But yeah, overall, just super excited to be here today, talk a little bit about my experience and, just my passion for, youth science overall.
No, it's really great that you were able to use a journal as like an avenue to explore your interest, like you said, sustainable energy. So our first question for you was, it's just loading up. Well, you've kind of told us this, but can you tell us about how you got involved into the journal? What really drew you to the journal, and what was the main reason why you wanted to work with the journal and help get the word across to more people?
Yeah, so I think what led me to it, it's tough thinking back exactly, but I was trying to recount this the other day when I got the invitation. I think what led me to it originally was that I had done this project in school regarding algae energy with some of my friends. And afterwards, we kind of had, this long document, a lot of research, and it was just kind of sitting in a Google Drive with nothing to do. So I looked for, ways that I could potentially get it out to the world and give other people a chance to read what we had done, both to, learn about the topic itself, but also to see, as a high schooler, what you can really get involved in within the area of science, and particularly writing about science. So I think I was just looking into different, areas to publish your work as a student. Obviously it's much more restricted not being a professional academic, but I think I ultimately just came across the journal either online or through LinkedIn or something like that, reached out to who was leading it at the time, and wound up getting involved, and actually wound up taking it over at a really good time. I wrote a couple articles for them, and then as the leaders at the time transitioned from high school to college, they wound up turning it over to me as the next executive director. So that was just a really great experience, and I'm really grateful that, however I did find it, whether it was, a stray Google search or whatever, that I wound up coming across it. So
yeah, definitely. It's really inspiring to hear your own, how you got involved with the journal, because I know for myself, I found IYSJ to be a really great opportunity to also just publish articles, which a lot of the writers that we have, they just really just want to get their work out there. So I think IYSJ just provides a great platform to do that. Another question we had for you was, how do you think the journal has helped you kind of in that transition to college life now? What kind of skills have you been able to develop because of it?
Yeah, I think there's a good mix there of hard, research writing skills, but also skills on the softer side, particularly just, confidence with having your voice heard, and realizing, like, I would go through some of the usage, statistics on WordPress sometimes for the site, and see that, some of our articles in particular, like even ones that I had written, were being read by people from, across the world. And that really, I think, for one, just boosted my confidence and turned me into someone who was, more willing to share the work that I had done. And I think that's been really good since I came to college, because, a lot of what college is about is, it's a world of opportunity, and it's about how much you're like able to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you, and not holding back for fear of, being less skilled than people who are already involved with the robotics club, or the science, or the, your college's science journal, or your college's newspaper. And I think that that's something that IYSJ taught me. I don't know if you guys had a similar experience, but just having that confidence in yourself and in the contributions that you can make.
Yeah, I honestly thought, because it was like different continents, like different hemispheres, you know what I mean? So I think it's really cool. I think the entire thing of having so many people around the world come together on to like create something like this journal, about something we're all passionate about. The next question we had for you are, what are some tips and tricks like you would have for anybody who's interested in writing articles for the journal? Like, I don't know, what are some things that you use like recurringly throughout your articles that you've published?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think one thing that makes IYSJ different from like a professional, academic journal, so to speak, is that, we have a lot less restrictions on, what you can write about and what we really consider to be science. And I think, like, even while I was executive director, that our definition just seemed to expand more and more, because people were bringing in great content from, the social sciences, from something that, talked about like the politics of medicine or the politics of environmental science. So I think what I learned from that is just, for one, pick something that you're passionate about. Scientific research and reading, it requires a lot of time spent looking into like these dense scientific articles, looking up words to understand what these different, like what this jargon means. And if it's not something that you're really interested in looking into, you're going to burn out. You're not going to make it to the end of the article, and it's not going to have, as high quality as it could, as it was something you were really passionate about. I think another strategy would just be to be careful about the sources that you're choosing. You can't spend all your time working in just, scientific research articles, because, for one, as a student, you don't have a lot of access to them. And for two, like I said, you can just easily get lost. But at the same time, you can't spend all your time in newspapers, because the information, it's a lot more subjective, and, it's not always based on, the data or the facts all the time. So I think learning how to incorporate multiple sources is really important in terms of getting to like what we in science try to think about as the objective truth, rather than the subjectivity that often makes its way into other forms of writing. But yeah, like I rambled a little bit there, but I think just being really careful about your sources, and then picking something that you're really passionate about, is because when I was writing a lot of these articles on nuclear energy and stuff, this is going to sound a little geeky, but it didn't feel like work for me, because it was something that, I really enjoyed looking into. So I think if you find something you're passionate about, it's never going to feel like work. It's going to feel enjoyable.
Yeah, I remember when I first came across the journal, I think you were like executive director at the time, and I saw so many interesting articles, and I was like, oh my goodness, like how, like it's like not just like this like one specific like you've got so many different areas, like a plethora of like topics and subjects that people are writing about from like all over the world. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Their passion is really evident through their writing. And I think one thing you also mentioned was about how there's a lot of different scientific words in articles that may not be accessible to people. So one thing, or one theme that I've noticed in a lot of the articles, was people just kind of clarifying those words in the beginning, which I think is really important to make everything accessible to everybody. Another question we had for you was, you also kind of touched upon this, but what was your favorite experience maybe of being a part of IYSJ? Because you obviously held the director of you held the role of being a director, so you got to work a lot with the exec team, but you also were able to write a lot of articles and interviewed some important people.
Yeah, so I think the number one thing that I enjoyed about IYSJ was just the people that I got to meet through it. For one, like Gauri already mentioned, meeting with students from around the world is, rewarding in and of itself. And you just get these perspectives that you don't get, going to school every day. But I also got to meet a lot of what you might call like professionals. So you might see in there that I did an article with James Conca, who's a PhD in, I forget what exact field, but he's an expert within nuclear energy and particularly like nuclear waste storage. So what's done with, it's a big debate with nuclear energy, what's done with the waste afterwards. And I got to set up I think I just cold emailed him or something like that. And I got to set up it wound up being like an hour-long conversation. It was just a fantastic experience overall. And then another example would be when me and Angela, who as I last know is the current executive director, at least when I left, we actually wound up speaking at a college course that was focused on like scientific communication. The professor actually wound up reaching out to us, as high schoolers. So being a high school and jumping into a college course to speak about my experience within like scientific communication was, at first it seemed daunting, but it wound up being a really rewarding experience in the end. So I think just overall, the people that I got to meet and the connections that I got to make would be the most rewarding part.
No, 100%. Like it's crazy sometimes. Like you sometimes just think of like how big the world is, and I don't know. I have those like moments where I was like, oh, and like everybody comes together in something like this, and I think it's just like super cool. We had another question. Do you have any tips for people who are like running the organization at the moment, like for the executive team, or like even Angela, she's the director. So do you have any tips you'd like pass on to the people who are helping like run the journal at the moment?
Yeah, I think one key realization I had when I was leading the journal is that, everyone that comes in, particularly high school students, everyone that comes in, they're at, a different skill level in terms of their experience with research and like scientific writing and stuff. But the one thing that everyone within IYSJ shared, which is why they ultimately got selected for the journal, was their passion for science. So I think just recognizing this and just knowing who's on the other side of the Zoom call or the Slack conversation, to make sure you're not giving them a task that it winds up being too weighty and just weighing them down because it's something they've never done before. Just making sure when you hand a task off to someone that you've given them clear, like really good guidance as to how to accomplish it, because it's easy to once you learn everything and you ascend and you get to the level of executive director or head of publishing, whatever, it's easy to forget what it was like 2 years ago when you first got into the field and how difficult it was to learn how to write an article. So I just think, as someone in a leadership position, handing down roles and tasks to other people, to writers and editors and stuff, just remembering who you're talking to, who you're giving the task to, and making sure you give them enough instruction that they're going to feel capable. Because everyone wants to succeed, everyone has the passion. It's just about giving them the right skills and tools to succeed.
Yeah, so like sometimes it's just easy to like give the task, but like giving the support and the guidance they need in order to complete that task can be hard sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's all the questions that we had for today. Thank you so much for giving us all of your insight.
Yeah, thanks so much for
everything.
being our first guest on the podcast. I hope you had a great time.
Yeah, this was fantastic, and it was great, thinking back to my experience with the journal and just recounting, like I said, all the people I got to meet, all the stuff I got to write about. So I'm excited to see where it goes, and best of luck to you all.
Thanks so much.
You.
Yeah, thanks.